I'm getting ready to glue these angles. This is angle fiberglass from my construction days to the back of the boat to support the swim platform, which will come off the engine pod. So I roughed up the back of this real well. I roughed up the transom, and I'm going to screw and glue it. And I was thinking about through bolting it, but then I said, you know, if I hit something that hard, maybe it'd be good if it just comes off rather than it rips the back of the boat off. So be a lot of epoxy and screwed, and it'll be strong enough for a swim platform. And if it needs to be stronger than that, there's something wrong. So I'm putting the swim steps together, the swim platform together. The core is going to be the 5/8 plywood. This is scrap from when I made the deck. And on the bottom, I'm reinforcing it with this mahogany type wood. I will wrap this in glass, these two layers. And then on the top, I'm going to do exposed teak because I have some nice teak. So I have trouble clamping the middle of these wide areas, so I use gravity clamps. And so yesterday I did the first board, and today I can move it over a little bit and I can get two more and finish one side, and I guess tomorrow or late this afternoon I can switch it around and finish the other side, and then sand it, clean the edges, and glass this top and bottom. Half of the bracing on both sides of the swim step in place and glued. Catch the other half maybe late this afternoon. So finished the clamping of the backing material on my little swim steps, swim platforms. Took 3 days, 1 day for each set. 1 day for the middle board and 1 day for each corner. But it's all dry now, cured, warm. So I'm going to finish putting my gravity clamps away and all my clamps away. I'm going to sand this flat, trim the edges and round the edges, and glass the GVs out of it. Because this, I don't want this to absorb water, and this will be facing down. It'll be in a real wet zone when the boat's in the water. Not underwater, but it will be splashed a lot. So I'm filling all the gaps with a thickened polyester, and in hindsight I wish I would have used a thickened epoxy because it needed a little sanding, and this stuff is hard to sand. It's sticky and it gums up paper. Not sure why I used polyester actually. Have this transom hanging on the wall of my wife's studio. It's been here for probably a decade, and the swim step on this rotted away. Apparently it wasn't teak, it must have been like mahogany or something. But anyway, the stainless steel brackets are nice, and I'm removing them to use them for the brace under the new swim step on the new boat. Well, I went as fast as I could for as long as I could to try to beat this. This is our Louisiana winter. Wet and not freezing cold, but 40s and 50s. Too cold to do epoxy and or polyester resin. Bottoms of the swim platforms are ready to glass, but it's too cold and damp. Time to switch gears. I can work on mechanical when it's not raining if it's cold, but I'm going to need to order pumps and stuff. And I can continue working on the leaning post. It needs a little bit of stuff. I could bring it to the foundry and work in the rain. And I could work on, what else? I can do upholstery work in the rain because I can bring that inside. I can build a T-top if I choose to build it, and I think I might. That'd be a good project for this winter. But progress on the boat itself is going to come slow to a crawl because this is what the winters are like, wet and cool. So I made a template for the stainless steel brace for the swim platform. I cut two little squares that are roughly the size of the aluminum of the stainless plates that I'm going to use, 3x3. This one's clamped, and this one is kind of halfway propped up with this stick. And then I cut another stick that was close to the right angles, and I hot glued it. Now I'm not worried that that stick is not straight, that it's off centered. That doesn't matter. What I'm concerned with is getting this plane in relationship to this plane correct. So I think I got it. I'm going to take it off and check the other side. They should be the same, but they might not be. It may be like a mirror image kind of deal. So now when I go to the shop to weld up the stainless steel, I'll be able to set them up so when I come back it should fit. Now the bracket's not finished. It might go up and down a scunch. Actually, it needs to go up a little bit. But I can slide this up and down. I can slide this in and out. That's not a problem. The problem is it's rainy and cold and I'm looking for something to do. So I'm going to start on this stainless steel work. So now I have a reverse template made, and this is going to make my welding a lot easier. I just took my template from the boat, set it on a little board, and clamped. I sucked up another board to the little blocks that represent the stainless steel. I sucked up one here and I hot glued it with some braces. So now when I get to the foundry and the welding machine, if I clamp this little plate here and clamp this little plate here and weld either this or I might have something heavier at the foundry together, I know they're going to fit. It kind of makes it idiot proof, which is the way I like to do things. So this is my reverse template thingy, just made with scraps, and next step will be get to the foundry and weld. So my original plan was to use these supports. When I took them off of the old transom, they had these nice backing plates. So I think I won't use these, and I'll use this tube. This is 316. It's just rusty because it's been in a steel rack. I think this will be a whole lot stronger. It'll be more challenging to cut and fit and to weld, but I'm going to give it a shot. Well, that was surprisingly easy. I got it very close with my cut, and I just needed to do a little sanding to get them fit better, and they're clean, and I'm going to try to weld them. And on this day, the welding gods were smiling at me. Welds went pretty well. A little buffing and grinding, and they really respectable, especially since you won't be able to see them because they're going to be underneath the swim platform. This is a hunk of a wooden boat I cut up a few years back, and this is teak decking. And I'm going to use this decking on top of the new little swim platforms. I've got this piece. I got a few more pieces too. I'm going to have plenty. The teak, although it's 50 years old, is in excellent shape. The support for it is rotten. So I'm going to have to, I'll cut these, I guess these were stringers or lookouts. I'll cut these up, knock them off with a hammer, and then I'll run the teak through the table saw to separate it. It's got nails in it. They're bronze nails, so I can cut them with the saw if that's the way it works out. It's not very pleasant because they come flying at your head. But I'm going to take this all apart and clean these boards up, and the same with the other piece to get enough material to deck the swim step with teak. This section of deck is going to be a little more challenging because these boards are sprung. They're in a curve. But I think by the time I cut them short enough to do the little swim step that I'm doing, there won't be really enough curve in each piece to really worry about. Maybe I'll have to run them through the joiner once or twice. But I think I'm going to cut this one in half before I attempt to take it apart. So I put I glassed the bottom of the swim step yesterday afternoon, kind of late. And it's gonna be kind of marginal temperatures, and it was a little damp. Covered it with plastic. I think it did okay. Feels pretty good. Yeah, this one worked pretty good. So after the cloth cured on the bottom of the swim steps, I painted them with epoxy paint to harden the resin so I could sand it, and then I sanded it. I sanded the edges and ground them a little bit, and there were some bubbles on the edges, so I just removed it off because I'll have a chance to go from the top. Do that over. So I have drilled the flanges that the swim step's going to sit on, and I got the first one sitting in place over here. And I'm going to take my drill and drill up through the flange holes, through the wood, and set some T-bolts in there. So I clamped the deck in place, and I drilled up from the bottom, 1/4 inch drill. I drilled down 3/8 big enough for the body of the T-bolt. Oh, and I countersunk a little area so that top of the T-bolt would be flush. And then I just pull them down with the bolts, and now I'm going to take it all off, and I'm going to glass the top of this with these T-bolts, T-nuts in place. I'll have to be careful to seal the hole so the epoxy won't get in there. I'll put some clay or something in the hole. And with the swim step off, I can finish the teak, and I can finish painting and all that other stuff, but I can just bolt it back on from the bottom. Sweet. First swim step is totally bolted. Now these bolts across the back, I'm going to have to get shorter ones because they can't be poking up like that. They'll push the teak off the top of the swim platform. These probably just need to be ground down a little bit because they're just barely too long. And this is my brace I welded up, and it will go more or less like this, and it'll be lovely. Everything will be lovely. Life is good. Unfortunately, I didn't buy enough bolts. Yesterday I gave the tops of the swim steps a coat of epoxy paint just to kind of seal up this rough wood, and I put a little blob of clay in each one of the T-nut holes to make sure paint wouldn't get in there. And now I'm glassing some cloth around the edges, and then chop mat around the whole, over the whole thing. And when this dries, I'll sand it and clean it and start putting the teak on the top. This is just like an extra waterproofing layer. I'm sealing up the cured resin with a coat of epoxy. This makes it much more pleasant to deal with because it cures the sticky. So after the epoxy cures, I have a much more easily sandable surface. It doesn't gum up the paper. I'm just knocking off the Sharpies that dripped when I had it the other way around and the resin was dripping, and cleaning up the edge and making sure I don't sand through my cloth. I don't want any exposed plywood edges. So I glued up these pieces of teak so I would have a thick enough piece to go around this corner. Let's see how that comes out. Trying to cut this curve with a big wide blade. It's the 3/4 inch blade. It's more curved than the blade really wants to do, but I found if you cut some relief cuts in the back so these pieces fall out as you go around the curve, it actually works pretty good. It lets you cut a much sharper curve than you could if you don't cut the relief cuts. I'm using my trusty Makita belt sander to clean up these not less than perfect curves and make them fit the less than perfect curves on the swim platform. Just had to play around with them a little bit. It only took a few minutes. So I got the outside corners fitting pretty well, and I put a coat of epoxy on the inside. And I got the two outside trim pieces. I had to glue them up because the stuff I had wasn't wide enough. And there's the other curve, and it's very cold, so I glued them this morning and it's still sticky, and it's supposed to get cold tonight, so I'm just kind of screwed as far as making good progress on this thing. I was hoping to wrap this project up for this week's video, but I don't think it's going to happen. So anyway, did the best I could.